Balinese is not Indian books. Section 9. Santo Saba works. Made based on academic studies and studies as a discourse to scientists to restore the true history of Indonesia. Batara Guru, also called Bathara Guru and Debata Batara Guru, is the name of a Mahadeva in several Indonesian mythologies. Its name comes from the Sanskrit Batara meaning honorable lord, and Guru, the epithet of Baspati, a dharmic god who lives and is identified with the planet Jupiter. Batara Guru in Javanese mythology. According to Javanese mythology, Batara Guru is a god and puppet that rules Kayangan, the region of the gods. He is the embodiment of Lord Shiva who governs revelations, gifts, and various knowledge. Batara Guru has a magic wife named Dwi Uma and has several children. Batara Guru is the only Wayang Kulit that is depicted in a forward-facing position towards humans. This can be seen from the position of his feet. It's just that because it is in the form of a puppet, it faces sideways. Batara Guru's vehicle is the ox Nandini. He is also known by various names such as Sanghyang Manikmaya, Sanghyang Katarbuja, Sanghyang Otipati, Sanghyang Jagadnata, Nilakanta, Trinetra, and Garinata. Birth. Batara Guru Manikmaya was created from a sparkling light by Sanghyang Tunggal, along with a blackish light which was the origin of Isamaya, Samar. By Hyang Tunggal, it was decided that Manikmaya was in power in Suryalaya, while Isamaya came down to earth to take care of the Pandavas. Batara Guru has two siblings, Sanghyang Maha Pungang and Sanghyang Isamaya. Their parents are Sanghyang Tunggal and Dwi Rakatawati. One day, Dwi Rakatawati spawned a shining egg. Sanghyang Tunggal changed the egg, the shell became Sanghyang Maha Pungang, the eldest, the egg white became Sanghyang Isamaya, Samar, and the yellow became Sanghyang Manikmaya. Later on, Sanghyang Tunggal appointed two of his older brothers to oversee mankind, especially the Pandavas, while Batara Guru, or Sanghyang Manikmaya, led the gods in heaven. When created, it felt the most perfect and flawless. Hyang Tunggal knew Manikmaya's feelings, then Hyang Tunggal said that Manikmaya would have defects in the form of weakness in the legs, stripes on the neck, turned away, and 4 arms. Batara Guru was very sorry to hear Hyang Tunggal's words, and his words really happened. One time Manikmaya felt very thirsty, and he found a lake. When he drank the lake water, which he did not know that the water was poisonous, then he vomited it back, so he got a stain on his neck. He noticed that when humans were born they had very weak legs. Instantly, his leg was hit by the plague, and Manikmaya's left leg became weak. When he quarreled with his wife Dwi Uma, he cursed Manikmaya by Dwi Uma, so that he would turn away like a giant, then Manikmaya turned away. When Manikmaya saw a praying man whose clothes covered his body, Manikmaya laughed because he thought he had 4 arms. So immediately 4-armed Manikmaya. The following is the order of Batara Guru's children, starting with the oldest, according to the Javanese Wayang tradition. Batara Sambhu, Batara Brahma, Batara Indra, Batara Bayu, Batara Wisnu, Batara, Ganesha, Batara Kala, Hanuman. Batara Guru in Batak mythology. Batara Guru is one of the Debata Na Tolu, gods of the Trinity, who controls the Banu Aginjang, the upper world, the abode of the gods. He and his brothers, Debata Sori Pada and Debata Mangala Bulan, were born from 3 eggs incubated by a giant hen, Manik Padiraja, an Awatara figure from Debata Asi Asi. He married a goddess named Sibaru Porti Bulan and had 2 sons, Mula Songta and Mula Songti, and 2 daughters, Sibaru Sorba Jati and Sibaru Dik Puruhar. Sibaru Dik Puruhar then married Saraja Odap and gave birth to offspring who became the ancestors of mankind who lived in Banu Atanga, the middle world, namely Earth. The Almighty Mulahadi Nab alone gave Batara Guru wisdom, judicial law, royal law, knowledge and the ability to control the destiny of mankind. Its territory extends from Shangas Hill to Parsambilan Hill, including the 7-story paradise where the sacred Hari Era tree grows. Batara Guru is depicted wearing a black robe and a large ship-shaped turban with 3 colors called Tulungkup. He rides a black horse and in his hands carries a scale called Gantang Tarawan. He has a black crow and a teak nangar. It also has the ability to give life to mankind and open their ears so that they can distinguish between the words good and evil. Based on the above sources, Batara Guru's children are registered as follows outside the law of Dalihan na Tolu. Sangta first married Nan Bauraja, daughter of Dabata Sori Pada and Sibaru Malimbim. Sangti first married Narudong Ulubagu, the daughter of Dabata Sori Pada and Sibaru Malimbim. Sibaru Sorba Jadi married Nagapadoa, son of Dabata Mangala Bulan and Sibaru Angarana. Sibaru Dik Peruhar marries Saraja Odap, son of Dabata Mangala Bulan and Sibaru Angarana. Batara Guru in Bugis mythology. According to Surek Galago, Batara Guru is a god, the son of Sang Padotok and Dadu Palingek, who was sent to earth to be raised as a human being. The divine name is Latojek Lanjik. He had at least 10 children from his 5 concubines, but only one son from the empress he loved, Winyalik Timok. He is the father of Batara Laduk and the grandfather of Saaragading, the main character of the Bugis mythology, Surek Galago. He is also the father of Sanjong Sari, the goddess of rice and fertility in Bugis mythology. List of Batara Guru's children, based on Surek Galago. Wiadong Nriuq aka Sanjong Sari, from concubine Wisong Nriuq Lapangarizing from concubine Wi Lelik Eling. Latemalurang from the concubine Wisong Nriuq. Latemalolo, twin brother of Latemalurang, from concubine Wisong Nriuq Lalumponggang from concubine Apung Talaga. Lapataunjang from concubine Tenridalunruk Wi Temaraja from concubine Apung Ritoya La Tenripung from concubine Wisong Nriuq. La Temaukek from concubine Wi Lelik Eling La Sap Ilik from concubine Apung Talaga La Tenriodong Dario concubine Tenridalunruk Batara Laduk from Empress Wi Nilik Timok. Batara Hyang Guru worship in Sangha Kamulan. Ring Kamulan Naran Ida Sang Hyang Atma. Ring Kamulan Tengan Father Naran Paratma. Ring Kamulan Kiwa Mother Naran Sang Hyang Siwatma. Ring Kamulan Middle Naran Raganta. Medu Brahmadadi Meme the father of Sang Hyang accusation. Taken from Lontar Usana Diwa. The meaning. In Kamulan it is mentioned Sang Hyang Atma. In the right room of the Pelinga Kamulan is a father called Sang Hyang Paratma. In the left room of Kamulan is a mother called Sang Hyang Siwatma. In the middle room of Kamulan Raganta becomes Brahma as mother and father becomes Sang Hyang accusation. In the upstream yard of every community house in Bali, there is generally a family worship place called Sangha or Marajan Kamulan. In Lontar Siwagama it is stated that Bhagawan Manohari from Siwapaksa on the assignment of Sri Gandharapati to build a cult called Kamulan in each upstream area of the house. The 10 residential yards have a place of worship called Pelinga Pratiwi. 20 residential yards have a place of worship called the Mother's Pelinga. 40 residential yards have a place of worship called Panti. Quote, this is why every community yard in Bali has a Kamulan shrine, which is generally built upstream of the house yard. According to several Hindu literature sources in Bali, the one who is worshipped at Pelinga Kamulan is Sang Hyang Atma. Besides being stated in the Lontar Usana Diwa quoted above, it is also stated in the Lontar Gong Wesi as follows. Naraniya Sang Hyang Atma. Ring Kamulan Tengan Bapanta Naran Sang Paratma. Ring Kamulan Kiwa Ibunta Naran Sang Siwatma. Ring Kamulan Madhya Raganta, Atma. Daddy Meme Father Ragan Sleepy Ring Dalem Daddy Sang Hyang Tungal Nungalan Raga. Quote. Likewise in Lontar Siwagama Sarga 10 states. Kramaniya Sang Patara is Mulayang Bachur Kamulania Nuni. That's why the Patara Sang Pitpara returned to his original Kamulan. The thing that states more firmly that the Pelinga Kamulan is a place of worship for Sang Hyang Atma is Lontar Purwa Bhumi Kamulan. This Lontar describes the procedures for the Nimbing Diwa Hyang ceremony in Kamulan. This Lontar describes in great detail the procedure for instilling the Holy Spirit of the ancestor called Diwa Patara in Kamulan. In Gayatri Lontar it is stated that when a person dies the spirit is called Preta. After going through the procession, the spirit ceremony is called Pitra. After going through the Atma Wedana ceremony with Nayaka or Mamukur the spirit is called Diwa Patara. The Naban ceremony and the Atma Wedana ceremony are classified as the Pitra Yadnya ceremony. Meanwhile, the Nalingahang or Nimbing Diwa Hyang ceremony by using Diwa Patara in Pelinga Kamulan is already classified as Diwa Yadnya. The spirit called God Patara is a spirit that has reached the God realm. Because Sanghyang Atma, who has reached the level of God Patara, is believed to be equal to God. Stabilizing Dewa Patara in Kamulan is also very clearly stated in Lontar Patuchar Liber Gongsa and Lontar Sanghyang Liber Gongsa. In Lontar Patuchar Liber Gongsa it is stated as follows. Mawang upload the God Patara ring, Mom listen to the ring Kamulan. Whereas in Lontar Sanghyang Liber Gongsa it is stated. Mawa offering Penguda Mala Karahakan Pitra Narania Ang uploadakan Dewa Patara ring mother with Muang ring Kamulan hears. The two Lontars stated that instilling the Holy Spirit of the ancestor called Dewa Patara in Kamulan with the term Mawang ing uploadakan Dewa Patara mother ring with Kamulan ring. In the Balinese tradition, Dewa Patara, which is distributed in Pelinga Kamulan, is called Batara Hyang Guru. In Vana Parwa 27214 states there are 5 kinds of guru, namely 1. Agni, namely the holy rays of Hyang Widi. 2. Atman is the purest element in humans that comes from Brahman. 3. Eyes, namely the mother who gave birth to us. 4. Pita, namely the father caused us to be born, and 5. Acharya, namely the teacher who provides knowledge. This seems to be what in Bali has become the teaching of chess teachers, namely Swadhyaya teachers, appearance teachers, recitation teachers and Wesesa teachers. Because Atman is one of the teachers stated in Vana Parwa, this seems to be the basis for Kamulan's establishment as a place to worship Lord Patara as Batara Hyang Guru. Atman in the Upanishad is Brahman that exists in a living being covered by Panka Maya Kosa. To make Atman a guru is through the process of Naban, Mamukur and Nges Dewa Patara ceremonies. The ceremony process is a symbol for releasing Atman from Atman's shroud which is called Panka Maya Kosa. Thus Atman, who is essentially Brahman, without hindrance, Panka Maya Kosa can become a teacher and a family. The ceremony is like removing the cloud cover on the blue sky that covers the sun's rays so that the sunlight can directly illuminate the earth. This is the process of the Naban ceremony to release Atman from the veil of Stula Sarira. The Atma Vedana ceremony removes Atman from the veil of Suksma Sarira. While the Danda Kalepa ceremony is a ceremony to take the sins of the ancestors by the offspring. Thus Sanghyang Atma was no longer veiled, so he was called Dewa Patara. Some people call the Danda Kalepa ceremony in Bali the Maparas ceremony, which means that the descendants of the person being ceremonied adopt the karmic debts of the ancestors being celebrated. What is inherited by the descendants is not only material wealth. Various karmic debts from these ancestors must also be inherited as well. This means that ancestor worship in Balinese traditions, whether good or bad, is less than that of the ancestors must be accepted as an inheritance. The good thing must be strived to continue to be maintained and even to develop its existence so that it is more useful for the next life. Meanwhile, the badness of the various deficiencies of the ancestors must be reduced so that they do not develop to damage the next life. Experience is the best teacher, people say. The good and bad experiences of these ancestors are made teachers in this life. That is the importance of worshipping Batara Hyang Guru in Kamulan. Ring Kamulan Naran Ida Sang Hyang Atma. Ring Kamulan Tengan Father Naran Paratma. Ring Kamulan Kiwa Mother Naran Sang Hyang Siwatma. Ring Kamulan Middle Naran Raganta. Medu Brahmadadi Meme the father of Sang Hyang accusation. Taken from Lontar Usana Diwa. The meaning. In Kamulan it is mentioned Sang Hyang Atma. In the right room of the Pelinga Kamulan is a father called Sang Hyang Paratma. In the left room of Kamulan is a mother called Sang Hyang Siwatma. In the middle room of Kamulan Raganta becomes Brahma as mother and father becomes Sanghyang accusation. In the upstream yard of every community house in Bali, there is generally a family worship place called Sangha or Marajan Kamulan. In Lontar Suwagama it is stated that Bhagawan Manohari from Suwapaksa on the assignment of Sri Gandharapati to build a cult called Kamulan in each upstream area of the house. Batara Sambhu. In the world of Javanese puppetry, Batara Sambhu is the son of Batara Guru who resides in Kayangan Sawelagringing. He was assigned to control the clouds. He never came down to the world and became a king with the title Prabhu Maldawa. He then sent the Wisrawa receipt, Dasamukha's father. In Javanese puppet performances, Wisanu is often referred to as the title Sanghyang Batara Wisanu. According to this version, Vishnu was the fifth son of Batara Guru and Batari Uma. He is the most powerful son of all the sons of Batara Guru. According to Javanese mythology, Vishnu first came down to the world and became a king with the title Sri Maharaja Suman. The country is called Medangpura, located in the present-day central Java region. He later changed his name to Sri Maharaja Matsyapati, dominating all kinds of aquatic animals. Besides that, Vishnu was also incarnated or born as a human. According to the puppet show, Vishnu's incarnations include Sri Maharaja Kanwa, Rezi Wisnunkara, Prabhu Arjuna Sasrabahu, Sri Ramawijaya, Sri Batara Kresna, King Erlanga, King Jayabaya, King Angalingdharma, King Kanarik, King Kertawardhana. The original teaching belief in the archipelago in Indonesia that all gods are manifestations of this supreme being. This belief is the same as that of Smartism, which also states that the various forms of God, Vishnu, Shiva are different aspects of the same supreme being. Lord Shiva is also worshipped in other forms such as Batara Guru and Maharaja Dewa, Mahadeva, who are very close to the sun in the Indonesian indigenous local teachings in Indonesia or in the name Kebatinan. A belief in Trimurti, which consists of the god Brahma, the creator of Vishnu or Vishnu, the preserver of Siva or Shiva, belief in all other gods and goddesses, Hyang, Dewata and Batara Batari, the sacred texts found in Hindu Dharma or Veda and Upanishads, is the basis of Indian and Balinese Hinduism. That's the original Dharmic that is perfectly stored in Bali. Other sources of religious information include the Universal Hindu Purana and Itihasa, especially Ramayana and Mahabharata. The Mahabharata and Ramayana epic has become an eternal tradition among Indonesians, expressed in wayang kulit wayang and dance performances. We need to know that the real events of the Ramayana and Mahabharata seriata actually happened, and the center of the kingdom mentioned in the story is in the archipelago. This appears in Prambanan, which presents the complete story. No other ancient building tells the complete story except in Prambanan. The agreement on this matter has been acknowledged by the Delong community in the archipelago. The aspect of supporting archaeology is that in Java in Sangiran, the oldest human fossils in the world were found. History of Hinduism and India. In this section we will understand the history and philosophy of Hinduism in general. The author is going to describe Hinduism, especially those from India. To see the differences between Bali and India, especially in understanding Hinduism, the author will emphasize once again that Balinese teachings are the original teachings of the archipelago, represents all the teachings that exist in the archipelago. Balinese teachings at first were not the same as Hinduism, especially in India. The original teachings of the archipelago which were recorded in Balinese culture were the teachings that underlie Hinduism and even Buddhism in India. So here, if the author describes Hinduism, it does not mean that he is explaining Balinese teachings, no. Here the author is describing Hinduism in general, which later we will understand that the original teachings of the archipelago recorded in Bali are the underlying teachings in India. The pre-Vedic teachings on Indian soil originated from the previous Indonesian archipelago. The oldest prehistoric religion in India that may have left its mark on Hinduism dates back to Mesolithic and Neolithic times. Some tribal religions in India still survive, predating the dominance of Hinduism, but it should not be assumed that there are many similarities between prehistoric and modern tribal peoples. The first human race to occupy India, 40,000 to 60,000 years ago, during the Paleolithic period, was the Australoid, which may have had some connection with the indigenous peoples of Australia. There are allegations that the race is either close to extinction or is being pushed back by the next wave of migration. Let's look at Australoids. In the late 19th century, anthropometric studies led to the proposition of racial groups in which it divided humanity into four main groups: Xanthocroic, Mongoloid, Negroid, and Australioid. The Australoid race is part of a racial classification that is used to refer to the people or indigenous regions of Southeast Asia, South Asia, Australia, Melanesia, and historically parts of East Asia. This concept begins with the typological method of racial classification. They are described as having dark skin with wavy hair. In the case of Vedoid races from South Asia and Australian Aborigines, Atavative Australoid from India. According to this typology, Australoid peoples are often mixed with other races, mostly Caucasoid and Mongoloid, throughout Indonesia, Philippines, Malaysia, Vietnam, Singapore, Thailand, Myanmar, Laos, Cambodia, East Timor, Brunei, Sri Lanka, the Indian subcontinent and Australia. In the out of Africa theory, the Australoid ancestors, the Proto-Australoid, are considered to be the first branches of the Proto-Capoids to migrate from neighboring Africa. 60,000 BC. This migration is hypothesized to occur along the current submerged continental shelf off the northern coast of the Indian Ocean, reaching Australia around 50,000 BC. However, this theory is supported by the Sunda land continent. According to archaeologist Peter Bellwood, many of the southern Mongoloid populations of Indonesia and Malaysia now have a high Australo-Melanesian genetic heritage. According to archaeologist Peter Bellwood, most people in Indonesia and Malaysia, the area he calls the Mongoloid Australasia zone, is southern Mongoloid, but has a high Australian mix. Ancient skulls of individuals with Australoid morphology have been found in America, which has led to speculation that people with phenotypical similarities to Proto-Australoids may have been the earliest inhabitants of the New World. If this hypothesis is correct, it would mean that some Proto-Australoids continued the great coastal migration beyond Southeast Asia along the northern continental shelf in East Asia and across the Bering Land Bridge, reaching America around 52,000 BC. According to the references above, we can conclude that the first human race to occupy India, 40,000 to 60,000 years ago, during the Paleolithic period, was the Australoid race originating from the archipelago which was still united called Sunda land. In the book that the author wrote entitled Lemuria Atlantis Nusantara, it is clear that the early civilization on Earth was in the Sunda land called Lemuria. After that time there was a civilization that dominated the world and was also centered in the archipelago, namely Atlantis, which historians call the era of the Indo-Aryan civilization. This Lemuria civilization has teachings about Shiva, Brahman and Vishnu. This teaching is not Hindu, but it is this teaching that underlies the Pulsafah, which was later named Hindu, Jain and later Buddhism. Before we understand more deeply about the true teachings of the archipelago, which are the basis of teachings in India, let us continue with this explanation, namely the history of the formation of the teachings of Pulsafah in India, which later was called Hinduism. After the Australoid occupation of Indian soil, the Caucasoid races, including the Elamo-Dravidians, 4000 to 6000 BC, and Indo-Aryans 2000 to 1500 BC, and the Mongoloid, Sino-Tibetans migrated to India. Elamo-Dravidians may have originated from Elam, now Iranian territory. After the occupation by the Australoid race on Indian soil, the Dravidian Caucasoid race. Let's see who and what civilization thrived on the Dravidian race on Indian soil. In the 19th century Myers Conversations Lexicon, 1885-90. The Caucasoid is one of the three major human races, alongside the Mongoloid and Negroid. Taxons are taken to consist of a number of subtypes. The Caucasoid society is usually divided into three groups for ethnolinguistic reasons, which are called Aryan, Indo-European, Semitic, and Hamitic language, namely Berber Cushitic, Egyptian. Asko Parpola, who considers Harappa to be Dravidian, noted that Merger, 7000 BC to about 2500 BC, west of the Indus River Valley, is the predecessor of the Indus Valley Civilization, whose inhabitants migrated to the Indus Valley and became the Indus Valley Civilization. It is one of the earliest sites with evidence of agriculture and grazing in South Asia. Here we find who and what civilization underlies the teachings in India from the archaeologist above, saying that Harappa as the Dravidian people were the predecessors of the Indus Valley Civilization, whose inhabitants migrated to the Indus Valley and became the Indus Valley Civilization. We will see about Harappa and his teachings, whether his teachings come from the archipelago. Evidence from several ancient findings proves that prehistoric religions in the Indian subcontinent originated from the Mesolithic period, which were scattered and inscribed on rock paintings. Harappan civilization. The people of the Indus Valley, which lasted 3300 to 1300 BC, mature period, 2600 to 1900 BC, had an early urban culture that predates Vedic religion. According to the anthropologist Gregory Possehl, The Indus River Valley Civilization, 2600 to 900 BC, contained a logical, or perhaps arbitrary, starting point for some aspects of the later Hindu tradition. Religion at that time contained the worship of the Almighty God, which some scholars, especially John Marshall, compared as Proto-Shiva, and perhaps the figure of Mother Goddess, underlying the figure of Sakti. Other practices from the Indus River Valley civilization that continued into the Vedic period included worship of water and fire. However, the relationship between the gods and religious practices of the Indus River Valley with contemporary Hinduism have been the subject of political disputes and scholarly debate. We will dive deeper into the Indus Valley Civilization and the Harappa Indus River Valley Civilization. The Indus River Valley Civilization, 2800 BC 1800 BC, is an ancient civilization that lived along the Indus River, which is now the territory of Pakistan and western India. The Saraswati Veda River probably dried up as late as 1900 BC. The people of Dravida who are thought to be the founders of this ancient city are themselves a question mark for archaeologists. Their history cannot be traced until now. The language and characters they used in the artifacts found there are still unsolved today. Harappa is a city in Punjab, northeastern Pakistan, about 35 kilometers. Harappa is located in the Indus River Valley southeast of Sahiwal. It is located on the banks of the former Ravi River. Its modern city lies next to this ancient city, which was inhabited between 3300 and 1600 BC. In this city there are many relics from the Indus culture era, which is also known as the Harappan culture. At that time, Harappa had a population of about 40,000, which was considered large in its day. The ancient Indus civilization was then known as a trading partner with the civilizations of Egypt and Mesopotamia. The ancient site of the city of Harappa contains the ruins of a Bronze Age city that was part of the cemetery culture and Indus Valley civilization, centered on Sindh and Punjab. The city is estimated to have a population of around 23,500 and was largest during the mature Harappa phase from 2600 to 1900 BC. The two largest cities of that time, Mohenjo-daro and Harappa, emerged around 2600 BC along the Indus River Valley. The stone artifacts at the Harappa location are made from red sand, clay baked at very high temperatures. The presence of trauma and infectious diseases is clearly visible in human skeletons taken from 3 burials of the city of Harappa, one of the largest cities in the Indus civilization. They discovered a growing character of Indus society and its destructive nature. The results found that the people who were taken, the analysis sample, from the graves turned out to have the highest rates of violence and disease. The rate of violence was around 50% in 10 skull samples, and more than 20% of the destruction proved that these people were proven to have leprosy infection. The results of the analysis contradict the old assumption that Indus civilization developed as a peaceful, cooperative and egalitarian society, without social differences, hierarchies, or differences in access to basic resources. The residents of the town of Harappa are suspected of having leprosy during the Indus urban development phase, and it has increased significantly over time. New diseases then emerged as tuberculosis was discovered post-urbanization. Violent injuries, skull injuries, also increased with time. The environment is slowly starting to change. Trade networks are getting out of control. When combined with changes in a certain social and cultural context, all cooperation aimed at creating a safe situation is increasingly untenable. As violence and disease increased to their highest level, humans finally left the Indus civilization in the city of Harappa. Uniquely, the city does not find buildings for religious activities and signs of the caste system. This has led researchers to speculate that the Mohenjo-daro and Harappa people were civilizations that lived completely dependent on science, had abandoned religious practice, and had a high philosophy of life, seen from the absence of a caste system in the social hierarchy. The author's study of the early civilization in the Indus River Valley, namely the Mohenjo-daro-Harappa civilization, was a civilization that had existed and experienced destruction after a terrible war, namely the period of the Bharatayuddha battle, which was recorded in the Mahabharata book. While the kingdom that first existed in the archipelago was a large empire recorded in the Ramayana story. This was recorded in the sacred Prambanan buildings and sacred building sites scattered in the center of the empire at that time, namely around the Diong Plain on Java Island. The history of Indian religions begins with the history of the Vedic religion, a religious practice from the beginning of Indo-Iran, which was collected and later edited into the Vedas. The period of composition, editing and commentary on these texts is known as the Vedic period, which lasted from about 1750–500 BC. Here we can see that there were teachings before 1750 BC. There were Vedic teachings, namely the pre-Vedic period. Pre-Vedic teachings that underlie the teachings and form the philosophy of religion which later was called Hinduism, Jainism and Buddhism. These teachings are marked by the mention of Shiva, Brahma and Vishnu. This is what is called Brahmanism, namely the original Dharmic teachings of the ancestors of the Indonesian archipelago, which until now are perfectly preserved in Bali. Later we will describe the underlying teachings before it was named Hinduism, namely the teachings of Brahmanism. Some of them called Shivaism and Vaishnava. This teaching later became Hinduism in India. Then where did this teaching come from? This teaching comes from the Sunda land, which is a large island where the center of civilization has existed and that civilization has been advanced is called Lemuria, which later on this civilization receded and experienced destruction due to disasters and large earthquakes. Because this civilization is centered in a volcanic area, the incident was marked by the eruption of Mount Toba, which is currently on the island of Sumatra, and Mount Sunda, which is currently in the form of a valley that became the city of Bandung in West Java. The Lemurian civilization was then continued with the Atlantis civilization on the big island of Sunda land, which has had noble teachings and philosophies. The teachings of this Pulsifa developed throughout the world, characterized by the culture of worship and reverence for the god Surya or the sun. Lord Ra is the sun god. Mention Pa, Ra, Hyangan is evidence that the civilization on the island of Java is the remnant of the civilization that worshipped the sun that once existed in the land of Sunda land, which is currently called the island of Java in the archipelago. The civilization with sun worship centered in the archipelago at that time spread throughout the world and left large building sites characterized by rituals to the sun, among the pyramids of Egypt and the Mayans in America. The characteristics of these buildings are the shape of the Pundan Barandik, ancient buildings and sites we have encountered to date in the archipelago, especially Java, and Borobudur is the most complete site that is still perfectly intact that marks this civilization. Borobudur is not a Buddhist temple, it was the original teachings of the archipelago during the Lemurian and Atlantis civilizations that underlies the formation of Buddhism and Hinduism in India. What incident and recorded where can we get this right? On the island of Java, we will find many previous buildings and sites that mark this, which is the basis for the earlier philosophy of the teachings in India, at a time called Pra-Weda. These teachings originated from the archipelago. In the discussion of Hinduism in India, namely the beginning of the history of Hinduism in India, historians note that Hinduism in India does not have a figure and a founder. Hinduism in India is a diffusion of several pre-existing philosophies. This is what historians mark with the Harappa and Mohenjo-daro civilizations in the Indus River Valley. Previous buildings that are widely found on the island of Java are evidence that the philosophy was there, namely the philosophy that underlies Hindu and Buddhist teachings in India, marked by the mention of Tri-Dharma Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma. The mention of Lord Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma are the original teachings of the archipelago. At that time it was not and was not called Hindu. This teaching underlies it, which later was named Hinduism or Buddhism. The events and periods of the spread of these teachings from Tanah Sunda land, which is currently known as Nusantara to India, are recorded in reliefs in Prambanan and also recorded in Borobudur in the form of a monument. Prambanan recorded the stories of Ramayana and Mahabharata. Prambanan is a sacred building from the previous era of civilization that has existed in the archipelago and recorded major events that underlie the teachings in India. The teachings and Pulsifa were recorded in the Ramayana and Mahabharata stories. The philosophy and teachings of the events of the Ramayana and Mahabharata later became the main basis for the philosophy which was later compiled in the Vedas. Now let's turn around thinking in accordance with the existing view that Hinduism and Buddhism originated in India and underlies the formation of teachings in the archipelago. If this is true, of course in India we will find many of the buildings that underlie it are recorded on the reliefs about it. But this is not proven, and the one that has many buildings and even more complete records of these teachings is in the archipelago, precisely in ancient sacred buildings scattered on the island of Java. The following Mahabharata epic is a continuation of the resume of the book which below describes the Mahabharata. This book was written by Ed. Viswanathan, translated by N.P. Putra. The Mahabharata contains episodes, stories, dialogues, discourses and sermons. It consists of 110,000 poems or 220,000 lines in 18 parvas or sections. Each parva is 1. Adi Parva, 2. Sabha Parva, 3. Wana Parva, 4. Warada Parva, 5. Udyoga Parva, 6. Bhisma Parva, 7. Drona Parva, 8. Karna Parva, 9. Salya Parva, 10. Sauptika Parva, 11. Stri Parva, 12. Santi Parva, 13. Anusasana Parva, 14. Aswamedika Parva, 15. Parva Ashrama, 16. Mausala Parva, 17. Mahaprasthanika Parva, 18. Swargarohana Parva. Apart from these 18 parva are poems which are appendices of 16,375 poems, known as Hariwamsa Parva. So in total there are 19 parvas, although some saints do not consider the last part to be significant. Mahabharata is the longest poem in the world. Bhagavad Gita is part of the Mahabharata. It is very difficult to tell the Mahabharata story in a few words. Even so, let me try to tell it briefly. Bhattara Brahma has the son a tree. Soma is a tree's son. Buddha and Pururavas were sons of Soma. Ayas is the son of Pururavas. Yayathi, Dushyantha, Bharata, Kuru and Santanu were born from the lineage of Ayas. King Santanu had a son from Dui Ganga, known as Gania, Dewabrata, and popularly known as Bhisma. After the birth of Bhisma, Dui Ganga parted with King Santanu. Then Santanu fell in love with a woman named Satyawati, from a fishing tribe. Satyawati's father made Bhisma vow to be celibate for life as a condition for allowing her daughter to marry King Santanu. From Satyawati, Raja Santanu had two sons named Chitrangada and Vichitravirya. They married two daughters of King Kasi, Ambika and Ambalika. Chitrangada was killed by a Gandharva, celestial being, and Vichitravirya died of an illness. Suddenly the land has no ruler. Therefore Ratu Satyawati invited her son, from Rishi Parasara, Rishi Veda Vyasa, to impregnate the two daughters. Princess Ambika gave birth to Dristar Ashtra. Princess Ambalika gave birth to a son named Pandu. Veda Vyasa also impregnated a servant girl who gave birth to Vijura. Pandu, even the youngest son, became king because his brother Dristarashtra was blind. Pandu married Kunti and Madri, and from Kunti he had three sons, namely Yudhishthira, also called Dharmaputra, Bhima and Arjuna. From Madri he has two sons, Nakula and Sahadeva. The 5 sons of Pandu are collectively called Pandavas. Dristarashtra married Dui Gandhari, and had 100 sons and 1 daughter. The eldest son is named Duryodhana and his daughter is named Dusala. King Pandu died suddenly. Because of this Dristarashtra was crowned king. But he was completely under the influence of his eldest son, Duryodhana. When the Pandavas came to settle in Hastinapura, the capital, Duryodhana tried to eliminate them. The enmity between Kauravas and Pandavas eventually led to a very powerful war known as the Mahabharata War. Krishna sided with the Pandavas in this war. In this war all Kauravas were killed. After the war Yudhishthira became king. Several years later, Krishna, along with his people called Yadava, left this world. Immediately after that Yudhishthira and his brothers handed over the kingdom to the following as a resume of the book where below is explained about Ramayana, this book written by Ed. Viswanathan, translated by N.P. Putra. Two famous epics or Ithihasa are Ramayana and Mahabharata. Rishi Valmiki wrote the first and Rishi Veda Vyasa, son of Rishi Parasara, wrote the second. The story of Rishi Valmiki is in Uttara Kanda, an addition to the great epic Ramayana. In the early part of his life, Valmiki was a street robber without a name. He used to rob passers-by to support his wife and children. One day Maharishi Narada passed by and the robbers attacked the holy man. Narada asked Valmiki why he was robbing her. To support my family, replied the robber. When you rob someone you also incur a lot of sins. Does your family also want to bear your sins? Asked Maharishi. I'm sure they will, answered the robber. All right, Said Maharishi, "Why don't you tie me up here? Go home, and ask everyone if they are ready to share your sin with the money you brought home." The robber agreed. He tied Maharishi to a tree and ran to his modest home. There he asked all members of his family with the question, "Will you share my sin?" The entire family, including his wife, gave an emphatic, "No." For the first time in his life, the robber understood the truth. With tears fell on his cheek, he ran to Narada and begged for mercy. The Maharishi taught the robbers how to worship God. It is said that the robber was so immersed in meditation that the ants built a hill of ants around himself. Finally, after years of meditation, a voice came out of nowhere asking the Samadhi robber to wake up from his meditation. The voice named him Valmiki, meaning, he who was born in an ant hill. This is the story of Valmiki. When Valmiki was walking through the forest, he saw a pair of doves making love. While Maharishi was captivated by the sight, an arrow passed him and hit the male dove. The dove flew down in sorrow and wept over her dead lover. Valmiki looked at the hunter and called him a bastard, but immediately felt that as a saint he didn't deserve to say that. Then a voice from the sky said, "Oh, Valmiki, your words are very poetic. Do not be sad. This is the right time for you to write about Batara Rama." After receiving orders from that voice in the sky, Valmiki wrote the eternal poem Ramayana, the story of Batara Rama. Valmiki wrote it entirely as a narrative of a dove crying over him. At the start of each chapter, he makes the reader aware of the fact that it is a weeping bird that tells the great tale about Batara Rama. In short, Ramayana is the story of Batara Rama and Dewi Sita. It is a single poem with 24,000 couplets. The short story is as follows. Once upon a time there was a king named Dasaratha who had 3 wives, Kausalya, Kaikeyi and Sumitra. Unfortunately, Dasaratha did not have children from his 3 wives, so he performed a special ceremony called Putra Kamesthi Yagam. From the ceremonial fire came out one panacea for all diseases, elixir, that the 3 queens drank. As a result, Kausalya had a son who was named Rama, Kaikeyi had a son who was named Bharata, and Sumitra had 2 sons who were named Lakshmana and Shatrugna. Rama and Lakshmana have been close friends from childhood onwards, as have Bharata and Shatrugna. When children enter adolescence, Rama married Dewi Sita, an orphaned daughter of the great King Janaka. After that, Raja Dasaratha thought to leave the throne and make the crown prince Rama king. The whole country rejoiced at the news, except for Kaikeyi and his servant Mandara. Finally, Queen Kaikeyi's jealousy and intrigue made Rama leave the kingdom and go to the forest with his wife Sita and his beloved brother Lakshmana. In the forest, poor Sita is kidnapped by Ravana, the giant king of Sri Lanka. Rama came to free Sita with the help of the Sugriva monkeys and the Prime Minister Hanuman. In one big battle, Rama destroys Ravana and his troops. Rama, together with Dewi Sita, finally returned to the Ayodhya kingdom. Ramayana is poetry that is very popular with Hindus. The holy Deepavali festival is a celebration of Rama's victory over the giant king Ravana. Deepavali or Diwali, festival of lights, is celebrated all over India. Rama is the avatara of Vishnu and Ramayana is a story that projects Hindu ideals or ideals about life. Rama is the perfect human, Sita is the perfect wife and Lakshmana is the perfect brother. There are various versions of the Ramayana. The Hindu version was written by Rishi Tulsi Das. The Malayalam version was written by Thuncheth Ezithchan. The original Ramayana text is written in exquisite Sanskrit. Let's have a little look at Prambanan. Prambanan is located in an ancient building complex, approximately 17 kilometers to the east of Yogyakarta, precisely in Prambanan village, Bokoharjo district. The location is only about 100 meters from the Yogya Solo highway. In the inner court there are 2 rows of temples stretching north and south. In the west line there are 3 temples facing east. The temple that is located in the north is Vishnu temple, in the middle is Shiva temple, and in the south is Brahma temple. In the eastern line there are also 3 temples facing west. These 3 temples are called the Wahana, vehicle equals vehicle temple, because each temple is named according to the animal which is the god's mount whose temple is located in front of it. The temple facing Vishnu temple is the Garuda temple, the one facing the Shiva temple is the Nandi temple, ox, and the one facing Brahma temple is the Swan temple. Thus, these 6 temples face each other to form a hallway. The Vishnu, Brahma, Angsa, Garuda and Nandi temples have the same shape and size, namely a square floor plan of 15 square meters with a height of 25 meters. At the north and south ends of the hallway there is a small temple opposite each other, called Kandi Apat. It is called the Shiva temple because in this temple there is a Shiva statue. Shiva temple is also known as the Rara Jongrang temple, because in one of the rooms there is the Durga Mahishasramardani statue, which is often referred to as the Rara Jongrang statue. The body of the temple stands on a platform as high as 2.5 meters. The Shiva temple, which is located in the middle of the western line, is the largest temple. The basic plan is in the form of a 34 square meters square with a height of 47 meters. Along the base of the temple wall are decorated with carvings of 2 kinds of decorations which are located alternately. The first is a picture of a lion standing between 2 kalpataru trees. These decorations are found on all sides of the foot of the Shiva temple and the 5 other large temples. On the foot walls on the north and south sides of the Shiva temple, the lion decoration above is flanked by panels containing carvings of a pair of animals taking shelter under a kalpataru tree growing in a vase. The various animals depicted here include monkeys, peacocks, deer, rabbits, goats, and dogs. On top of each tree were 2 birds perched. On the other side of the temple's foot wall, both at the foot of the Shiva temple and other large temples, panels with pictures of animals are replaced with panels with pictures of canary, a pair of human-headed birds, who are also taking shelter under a kalpataru tree. The stairs to go up to the Bachur surface are located on the east side. The upper staircase is equipped with staircases whose walls are decorated with carvings of vines and animals. The cheek of the stairs is decorated with a wide-open carving of a dragon's head with the figure of a god in its mouth. On the left and right of the stairs there is a small temple with a pointed roof with Shiva statue carvings on all 4 sides of its body. At the top of the stairs there is a Padaraksa gate leading to the hallway on the surface of the shelf. Above the threshold of the gate is a beautiful Kalamakara carving. Behind the gate are a pair of small temples that have niches in their bodies. The niche contains the statues of Mahakala and Nandiswara, the Dorman gods. On the surface of the Bachur there is a veranda about 1 meter wide that surrounds the body of the temple. This hallway is equipped with a fence or ledge, so that it looks like a hallway without a roof. This hallway winds at an angle, dividing the temple wall into 6 sections. Along the body walls of the temple are decorated with rows of Lokapala statues. Lokapala are deities guarding the cardinal directions, such as Bayu, Indra, Varuna, Agni and Yama. Ramayana reliefs are carved along the side of the ledge. The story of this Ramayana is carved clockwise, starting with the scene of Vishnu being asked to come down to earth by the kings to overcome the chaos made by Ravana and ends with a scene where the construction of a bridge across the ocean is completed to a Lanka state. The connection to the Ramayana story is a wall in the ledge of the Brahma temple. The entrance to the rooms in the body of the temple is on a higher terrace. To reach the upper terrace, there are stairs in front of each door to the room. In the temple body, there are 4 rooms that surround the main room which is located in the middle of the temple body. The entrance to the main room is through the room facing east. This room is an empty room without any statues or decorations. The entrance to the main room is located in line with the entrance to the eastern room. This main room is called the Shiva room because in the middle of the room there is the Shiva Mahadeva statue, namely Shiva standing on a lotus with one hand raised in front of the chest and the other flat in front of the stomach. The Shiva statue is located on a 60 cm umpak foundation, in the form of a yoni with a drain along the edge of its surface. There is no connecting door between the Shiva room and the 3 rooms on the other side. The north, west, and south rooms have their own doors which are located directly in front of the stairs going up to the upper terrace. In the north room there is the Durga statue. Durga is depicted as an 8-armed goddess standing on the Nandi ox facing Vishnu temple. One of his right hand is resting on a mace, while the other 3 hands hold arrows, swords and discs, respectively. One left hand holds the head of Asura, a dwarf giant who stands on the head of a Mahisa ox, while the other 3 hold a bow, shield and flowers. In the western room there is the Ganesha statue in a cross-legged position on the Padmasana, lotus throne, with the soles of the feet meeting each other. The palms of the hands resting on the knees in an upward position, while the trunk rests on the left arm. In the southern room there is the Agastya statue or Shiva Mahaguru. This statue has a slightly fat and bearded posture. Mahaguru Shiva is depicted in a standing position facing the Brahma temple in the south with his right hand holding a prayer beads and the left hand holding a pitcher. Behind it, on the left is a fly repellent and on the right there is a trident. Vishnu temple is located north of the Shiva temple. The temple body stands above the bachur which forms the ledge. The stairs to go up to the bachur surface are located on the east side. Along the body walls of the temple are panels with sculptures depicting Lokapala. Along the inner wall of the ledge are decorated with a row of panels bearing Krishnayana reliefs. Krishnayana is the story of Krishna's life from the time he was born until he succeeded in occupying the throne of Karajan Dwaraka. Above the ledge was lined with pearl decorations. Below the pearl, on the outer side of the ledge wall, there is a small niche with Kalamakara decorations on it. In the niche there are carvings depicting Vishnu as a priest sitting with various hand positions. Vishnu temple only has one room with one door facing east. In the room, there is a statue of Vishnu standing on a yoni-shaped umpak. Vishnu is depicted as a god with four hands. The right hand holds the chakra, Vishnu's weapon, while the left hand holds the oyster. The front right hand holds the club and the left hand holds a lotus flower. The Brahma temple is located south of the Shiva temple. The body of the temple stands on a platform that forms a ledge. Along the body walls of the temple are panels with sculptures depicting Lokapala. Along the inner wall of the ledge are decorated with a row of panels containing the continuation of the Ramayana story on the wall in the ledge of the Shiva temple. This fragment of the Ramayana story in Brahma temple tells the story of Rama's battle with the help of his younger brother, Lakshmana, and the monkey army against Ravana until Sinta goes wandering into the forest after being expelled by Rama, who doubts her purity. Sinta gave birth to her son in the forest under the protection of a hermit. Above the ledge was lined with pearl decorations. Below the pearl, facing out, is a small alcove decorated with Kalamakara on it. In the niche there are carvings depicting Brahma as a priest sitting with various hand positions. Brahma temple also only has one room with one door facing east. In the room, there is a Brahma statue standing on a yoni-shaped umpak. Brahma is depicted as a deity who has four faces, each facing a different direction, and two pairs of hands. On the forehead on the face facing forward is the third eye which is called Urna. The Brahma statue was actually very beautiful, but now it is broken. The walls of the Brahma room are plain without decoration. On the walls on each side there is a protruding stone that serves as a place to place an oil lamp. Nandi temple. This temple has one entrance staircase facing west, namely the Shiva temple. Nandi is the holy ox of Lord Shiva. When compared with Garuda temple and Angsa temple which are on the right and left, Nandi temple has the same shape, only slightly bigger and taller in size. The body of the temple stands on a platform about 2 meters high. As found in the Shiva temple, on the footwall there are two carved motifs that are located alternately. The first is a picture of a lion standing between two kalpataru trees and the second is a picture of a pair of animals taking shelter under a kalpataru tree. On the tree perched two birds. Such images can also be found in other vehicle temples. Nandi temple has one room in its body. The stairs and the entrance to the room are located on the west side. In the room there is the Lembu Nandi statue, Shiva's vehicle, in a lying position facing west. In the room there are also two statues, namely Aka Surya, sun god, who is standing on a carriage pulled by 7 horses and Aka Kandra, moon god, who is standing on a carriage drawn by 10 horses. The walls of the room are not decorated and there is a stone protruding from each side of the wall which serves as a place to put an oil lamp. The walls of the hallway around the body of the temple are also plain without carving decoration. Garuda temple. This temple is located north of Nandi temple, opposite Vishnu temple. Garuda is Vishnu's mount. The shapes and decorations on the legs and stairs of Garuda temple are similar to those in Nandi temple. Although it is called Garuda temple, there is no Garuda statue in the room inside the temple. On the floor of the room there is a Shiva statue that is smaller than the one in Shiva temple. This statue was found embedded under the temple, and in fact the place is not in the room. We can find out how complete the description of Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma is in Prambanan, Indonesia. Is it true that in India we can find this out if this teaching comes from India? Let us look again at the analysis we can get from historians about the teachings that exist in India, especially about Hinduism. From the explanation of Prambanan and the description of Shiva, Vishnu and Brahma, we can conclude that the teachings that appear in Prambanan are identical to Brahmanism, namely the teachings. The original Dharmic that was brought by the Saka or Arya people of the Indonesian archipelago to almost 3/4 of the earth and underlies the birth of Jaina Buddhism and Hinduism in India. Continues to Section 10. By Santo Saba.